reminding one day that beyond words, beyond even visuals, the proposal here is much like a passage that came with Jesus. At Jesus' time, many people got together in the temple to discuss the scriptures, the Pharisees. And they used to read the scriptures, go through the details, rationalize them, to the point that they couldn't understand the whole 9 yards of Jesus' message. One day, one sincere Pharisee, Nicodemus, approached Jesus and questioned Jesus, saying, "Master, I have studied the scriptures my whole life, and I recognize sincerely in you the Messiah, sent by God to help us. But how can you tell me to get one day to the kingdom of God?" Let us remember that when they used that expression in the past, they meant happiness, everlasting happiness. And then Jesus kindly, because he was a kind master, he turned to Nicodemus and said, "Nicodemus, you forgot that more than reading the scriptures, you should have felt the scriptures." And that's why Chico Xavier is a role model for us, because he did not only receive, he did not only read, he felt it. And the proposal today is about feeling. It's very moving for us because it's a proposal of the heart. Chico Xavier is all about the message of love, something that we're always striving to achieve and to sustain our lives. And Geraldo Lemos Neto is kindly bringing to us, being the bridge of this message, without which we'll never get to the kingdom of God. Geraldo Lemos Neto is a friend who comes from Brazil, who has a whole family, he's going to tell, truly connected, house to house, childhood to childhood with Chico Xavier. He grew up in that environment, and he voluntarily gravitated towards Chico Xavier to learn all the more, because many people were neighbors to Chico Xavier. They didn't care. But Geraldo did care. And he's going to tell us much about the memories, about the teachings, about the legacy, and somewhat about his life as well with Chico. And professionally, he has his own pathway, and as a good Spiritist, he also dedicates his life to Spiritism. Currently, for so many years, he has been the director, founder, coordinator of the House of Chico Xavier in his home city of Pedro Leopoldo, where Chico was born. We were recently there, like last month, and we're quite impressed about the quality of the work that is being done, and a place that certainly for whomever is traveling to Brazil to stop by and learn all the more, because I was telling him yesterday, when he tells the stories, it seems like a magician bringing like a rabbit out of it, and then there is a dove, and then there is something else, like it's never ending. It's always full of surprises, the legacy of Chico Xavier. And Geraldo is here to make us rejoice and enlighten. And I think it's great to see children and preteens, teenagers, because when Geraldo was your age, Chico Xavier was doing his work. He kept an eye on it. And today he's here. Who would tell? He never planned it. The spirits did, right, Geraldo? And he's going to be here with us. We have a plan for 2 sessions. One in the morning talking about the many facets of Chico Xavier's mediumship, his life, his legacy. After the lunch break, then we are going to dedicate to another amazing topic, which probably you'll be fascinated about as well, which is about reincarnation and reincarnation in Emmanuel's novels and the people who were related to those characters reincarnated at Chico's time. You see pictures, you see the revelations of Chico Xavier, and there are so many teachings for us in our daily lives. I won't say much more than that. And Geraldo told me he would like to open this session as an interactive opportunity for us. So hopefully we're going to manage it so well that we're going to be able to do it all. Okay? Geraldo, please.
Well, thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. It's a very enlightenment opportunity for me. And first of all, I would like to thank you all and thank especially Vanessa and Carlos, who is receiving me with so kind and friendship. Thank you very much. And second of all, I ask you to forgive my English. Okay, I lived here in the States for like 34 years ago, for 2 years in the state of Washington and in Arizona, so my English is not updated. I'm sorry. I'll try. I'll try to speak in English, but Vanessa will help me if I cannot. And I'm from a family from my mother's side, the Machado family. It's from Pedro Leopoldo. They were raised and born in Pedro Leopoldo. At the same time, Chico Xavier was there. My grandmother was born in 1911 and was Chico Xavier's friend and fellow partner at the school. And all of her 7 brothers and sisters also were there at the time when Chico Xavier was a child. Before all the mediumship, all the works he started after 17 years old. And we are in the first time talking about his faculties, his very mediumships that he had, and the relationship we had with him. I was a child, and was always hearing something about Chico, about his love, about his how he was so kind to the people. He was his charity was always related with the people, with my family, and I was very impressed with all the phenomena that was around him, and I was always asking my family to introduce us, right? Because I want to be around this man and know this man. And finally the opportunity came when I was 19 years old. One of my aunts, Nair Machado Pascoal, that lived in São Paulo and worked in a publisher house and a center, a Spiritist center in São Paulo, that was launching 2 Chico's books in 1981. It was the 14th of October of 1981, and she called me in Belo Horizonte, where I lived, and told me, Geraldinho, you are always asking me to introduce you to Chico, so come to São Paulo and I'll try to put you in contact with Chico's. And then I flew to São Paulo. I was there for this day, and the first impression was so amazing. The first impression was so deeply touching, because the reunion started at 8 p.m. and there was a line, a queue of thousands of people waiting to see Chico and just to hug him or to have a little word with him. And I was there to helping him with the books. I opened the books and placed stamps so he could autograph the books. I was like 3 meters away from him. And the people never stopped coming by. It was the reunion was until 7:30 a.m. the next morning. From 8 p.m., 11 hours and a half. And he was so happy. He was so full of joy just to have those people, just to talk with the people and to autograph his books. And he also was giving the people one flower, one rose. Each one of them received a rose from Chico's. And there was some ladies that helped Chico, and he would ask them to take off the espinhos, thorns, take off the thorns of the roses, so that the people would not hurt themselves. This is Chico Xavier, and I was 19 years old. He was 71 years old, and after so many hours of working, I was exhausted, and he was full of joy, full of life. Like 7:30 a.m. the next morning. Then my aunt told me, "Now, Geraldinho, that you worked, you have the salary to get to know the Chico," and she was going to introduce me to Chico. And then something happened that I'd never told this to my aunt and nobody in my family, that I used to write to Chico just to express my gratitude for him and how wonderful was to have him around our family. But I never signed the letters, and I never put the address so he could write me back. I just signed it a friend. I always signed a friend. And I've since that point, I've never talked about that with anyone in my family. So when my Aunt Nair was going to introduce me, she told Chico, "Chico, this is," and he called my name, "this is Geraldinho. How are you, Geraldinho?" And I was so impressed, and he told me, "There's 2 things I never understood about you." And I was, "What is that?" "What is happening?" And he told me, "You have been writing me so kind letters, and I never understood 2 things. The first one, why didn't you sign them? And the second one, why didn't you put the address so I could write you back?" And I was like just tears and very impressed with this. And he took a bunch of roses from the ladies beside him and offered me in the name of my grandma, that at this time has already passed away. And so that he asked me to visit his works and all the reunions that he has at that time in Uberaba, where he moved in 1959 from Pedro Leopoldo. And 15 days like I was there to meet all the works and charitable things that Chico did, in Uberaba. I'll try here to speak about his mediumship, because he is most known by the psychography or automatic writing. Uh, Up to now, Chico Xavier is the most published Portuguese author. It has now published 469 books that we catalog there in Casa de Chico. And we estimated that he has sold near 50 million books in 29 languages, mostly, of course, in Portuguese. He's a phenomenon, a very human phenomena, and also a mediumship phenomena that has no other similar in the world after Jesus. I don't think so. Many of his works, many of his doings are very, very much impressive. And we could start with when he was like 4 years old. His mother, Maria de São João de Deus, was still alive. She passed away when Chico was 5. And one time the family was a very Catholic family. And they went to the church every day, almost every day. And at that time they went to Matozinhos church, which is about 7 kilometers from Pedro Leopoldo, from Chico's house in Pedro Leopoldo. And they went by foot to see the Mass. And when they were back, there was a very heavy rain. All the family was wet and running. And when they got at home, Chico's mother told them, the guys, the little guys and girls, to chain themselves. And Chico was there, stood there beside them, his parents. And so his father started talking about the neighbors that got an abortion, a natural abortion, and was doing like talking about that and making judgments and everything. And Chico was 4 years old, and suddenly he would say, "You are not," to his father, "you are not aware of what happened with her. She had a problem of nidation, I don't know, nidação, because she had a ectopic position pregnancy." Chico was 4 years old, and his father was so amazed that he was like looking to his wife and tell Maria, "This is not our child. They must been changed him at the church. Somebody changed our son." And so that Chico started with his legacy of being someone around two worlds: the material world here and at earth, and the spiritual world. At the age of 5, her mother passed away, his mother passed away, and she could start to see Maria de São João de Deus and talk to her. And for him it was just naturally. It was just a natural thing. And he was not understood. He was not understood by his father and his brothers and sisters, his friends, and was like someone that suffered bullying bullying, and he suffered a lot by living with. His father was not able to connect all the children, the 9 children he had, so he gave away the children. So Chico was to live with a madrinha, godmother, and she was unfortunately a very uh, unstable woman that inflicted him so many punishments. And then after 2 years, his father got married again with a wonderful woman, Cidália Batista Xavier. That was a second mother for Chico. And she was very special in the life of Chico because she understood Chico. She understood the mediumship of this little guy and asked him to stop talking about what he saw, what he heard about the spiritual world, and just talk to her, so that they could develop a friendship and a relation that of confianza, trust, and then she was very special, and Chico was at that time a very happy young children. At the age of 12, the government of our state in Minas Gerais, in 1922, Brazil was commemorating 100 years of liberty from Portugal. Right? And then the state of Minas Gerais issued a contest with the students of the third series, where Chico was, and they would talk and write about this 100 years of liberty for Brazil. And so that in Pedro Leopoldo, also the school was participating in this contest. And Chico wrote a composition that he told everyone that this composition was not from him. He heard someone that helped him write these words, and it happened that his composition took the third place in the whole state of Minas Gerais, which is the second most populous state in Brazil. So it was something, populated state in Brazil. So it was it was something. This guy took the third place, and he had the menção honrosa, honor mention, with his composition. And so his fellows at the school start to arguing him. He's a fraud. He could never do that again. And he told us that the people there was like the party of pro Chico and the party of against Chico. And he was 12. And he used to tell us that since he was a child, he always bring trouble. Because always had to deal with the ones that didn't understand him. So that at this time at school, one of his fellow students or brothers asked him a challenge to do that again in front of everyone, and not able to look at books or consult anything, and they would, and the teacher agreed with that. And at one time, one of them told, "I will choose the subject." And it was a little girl, of course, and the girl chose the subject of areia, sand. Okay, now write about sand. And Chico was asked to come to the board, right? And he saw a man beside him, and the man told him, "Don't worry, we're gonna write about the sand." And he wrote, "My dear sons and daughters, nobody make fun of the creation. A grain of sand is almost anything, but seems like a star, a small star, reflecting the light of the Son of God." And he was 12. He told us also that, of course, this mediumship is clairaudience, because he was hearing the Spirit and was transcripting what the Spirit was telling him. And he also had, since he was a little boy, the mediumship of clairvoyance. And he told us that since he was Catholic, a good Catholic, that was going frequently to church, to Mass, that every time he was at Mass, he was able to see the spirits, especially when the priest was to consecrate the hostia, host. Okay, and he would see the lights coming from above and blessing the wine, blessing the host. And also when the priest was giving the host to the people, he also would see the light going through the throat of the people, and would see also in some of them, not in all of them, that light would come and go to the hearts and shine. And in other ones, the light would blink and fade. And for him, it was so natural. And he was a very good friend of the priest. And after the Mass, he would confess and tell the priest what was going on. And the priest at that time was a very good friend of Chico. His name is Father Sebastian Scarpello. And he was the one that told Chico's father not to have Chico at the mental house, because Chico's father was always thinking about it. This guy is nuts. I'm going just to give him to the mental house, and that's it. But Father Sebastian Scarcello convinced him that Chico was not a bad person. He was very lucid, very devoted boy, and could help the family, could help Mr. Chico Xavier to raise all of his children by collaborating with the money, and so that he facilitate Chico to have his first job. And his first job was at 8 years old. He started working at 8 years old and helping the family. At some point, he was, como fala? Arrimo de família. He was the head of the house, and the house would have 17 people. His father, his father was ill, and his sisters and brothers-in-law that was not at work, and their children, and he just had a little salary to make it all. That's Chico's life, not an easy life. the time that he became aware of the Spiritist, of the Spiritism, he was 17 years old. And he got to know a couple from Belo Horizonte, José Hermínio Perácio and his wife Carmen Perácio, that was already Spiritists, and was asked to help the family because one of Chico's sisters, Maria da Conceição, was having some problems with obsession. And this couple came from Belo Horizonte to Pedro Leopoldo and introduced themselves to the family. They were asked from a fellow friend to help the family. And so that they introduced Chico for the first time with the books of Allan Kardec. He was 17. And the first meeting, Spiritist meeting, that in this life Chico Xavier was attending was at his own house. It was a session, this obsession session, where his sister was helped. And Chico, it was the day of 7th of May of 1927. And Chico was, for the first time, saw the spirits and was imposed to talk with the obsessor. And he helped by talking with the obsessor, the spirit, the turbulent spirit that was making troubles for his sister. And after that, at the date of 8th of July of 1927, the same couple, José Hermínio and Carmen Perácio, proposed a reunion where they could preach and also pray for the good of the family. And Mrs. Carmen Perácio saw a very interesting image. She was also a clairvoyance, and saw an image around Chico Xavier with a rain of books. She saw a rain of books over this guy of 17 years old. So she gave him paper and pencil and asked Chico, I think your mission in this world is to write. And Chico, for the first time, had his first psychographic that was signed with a fellow spiritual friend, not named, not identified, but was just signed as a spiritual friend. And so that he started his esclarecimento, clarifying a mission here on earth in one hand. And 2 days after that, he also had a vision, a very special vision, when he was praying at his bed at night, and he saw a beautiful woman, a beautiful illuminated woman that came to him and told him, Francisco, I'm here in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ to ask you to help us giving the poor food and shelter. And Chico was so amazed because he was from a very poor family. They didn't have anything to give away. Themselves, they're almost starving. So Chico told her, but we don't have any resources, anything to give. And she told Chico, don't worry about that. All the resources and the friends and the people will come to help you, if you just accept Jesus Christ's calling. So that the next morning, Chico woke his sister, Maria Luisa Xavier, and told her, "What do we have here at home?" And "We have just breads and some biscuits. Let's give it away to the poor, to the needy." At that time, Pedro Leopoldo was a very small city, like 3,000, 4,000 maybe inhabitants. And by the river lived the homeless, the ones that didn't have home. Nowadays that doesn't exist anymore. But at that time, there was many needed people there. And she was, "Are you crazy, Chico? This is for our children." "Oh, don't worry. Other resources will come, and we will have the means to raise them." So in the 10th of July of 1927, he started the other hand of his work, which was the charity, and never stopped it. So he had 75 years of dedication. From 1927, in July of 1927, in the little Pedro Leopoldo area, from 2002, when he passed away at the 30th of June of 2002 in Uberaba. And all of his life was dedicated, in one hand, for clarifying the people with the messages, with the spiritual word, and all the benefactors, the spiritual benefactors that wrote through Chico Xavier. Many books, 469 books till this day, because there is some works until to be published. And from then also until his passing away, he always dedicated himself to charity, to congregate people with the work of friendship, with solidarity, fraternity, and he was never asking for himself, never. All of this author rights from his books, all of the 469 books, he gave away. All of that to charitable institutions, to publisher houses that shares a lot of works with the Spiritism, the spreading of the Spiritism, and also charitable works. And so that was always the life of Chico. Let's talk about another side of his mediumship. When he first inaugurated the Centro Espírita Luiz Gonzaga, the first spirit center that he founded in Pedro Leopoldo, they dedicated to a saint, Luiz Gonzaga. But Chico was not aware of who was that, because first he thought to make an homage or to tribute to one of Kardec's guide, but the people there misunderstood and attributed to Luiz Gonzaga, but it was not that one. But anyway, the spirit of Luiz Gonzaga appeared to Chico and asked him, "Okay, I noted that you guys formed a group in honor of my name, but I have some asking towards you. I would like for me to accept this this honor or this patronage, the tribute. I have some exigencias, demands. I have some demands." "Okay," Chico told him, "make your demands." you have to dedicate 1/3 of your mediumship to help the poor, especially in the homeopathic recipes, prescriptions, yeah. And you have to dedicate 1/3 of your time for free, not asking for money, not asking for anything, just help the people that can't afford the prescriptions, the medicines and everything. And also the other third of all you collect in Centro Espírita Luiz Gonzaga should transform into cesta básica. Food baskets to the need. 1/3 of all you collect is for the need. So the rest is to devote to do the centro and everything. But you have to deal with that. And Chico accepted that. In all of his life, he was like doing this. But at the first, when the centro started, he was feeling very alone because all the first fellows that started the centro with Chico, most of them died in a matter of 8 months. Most of them died because they were older people and could not stand to the task. And so Chico was left with just him, his brother, José, and my tio avô, my uncle, great uncle, and my grand uncle, and they were just 3 of them. And Chico was kind of, well, he was writing so many beautiful messages, and no one to read to, no one to show him. And then one day he was kind of, in 1931, kind of sad because nobody cares, nobody was there. And he, at that time, Emmanuel was already guiding him in 1931. So Emmanuel appeared to him and asked Chico, what's going on? Why are you so sad? And Chico told him, aren't you seeing? We are almost alone here. Nobody cares. All the people that started with us, most of them died, and the other ones just left. Nobody has a compromise with this new doctrine. No, almost nobody cares. And Emmanuel told me, do you think nobody cares? Okay, next week I'll show you. And the next week, when Chico was there almost alone, in the flesh, and he saw, Emmanuel opened his clairvoyance, mediumship. And he was able to see, como fala, arquibancada? Stands, seats all around the central, full of spirits, many spirits was there. And he was very surprised because he was accustomed to see the spirits, but the ones that he knew, the ones that the neighbors that passed away, and his families that have already passed away, that kind of people he was accustomed to see. But he looked around and did not recognize one of them. they were all different from the Pedro Leopoldo families. He could not connect one to another. So he asked about that to Emmanuel. Who are those people? Who are those spirits? And Emmanuel said to him, those are the ones that are studying with us. And then after that, they will reincarnate to proceed to go with the works of Spiritism. Here in Brazil, in all over the place. They are the ones that will study the messages you are writing now, through that we are writing now through your hands, and proceed with the works. And Chico used to call them the friends from the arco-íris, the rainbow, friends from the rainbow, that became friends to him. One of at that time also happened a thing, because at that time Chico, the central was in Chico's home, and the place where he developed the works was a place that had a window right beside a neighbor home. And she was very upset with that, because she was used to see Chico happily talking to nothing. He was talking to spirits, but she couldn't see the spirits, right? And sometimes it was just Chico, his brother José, or maybe my great uncle Zeca, and Chico was there happily talking to nobody. And she was, this guy is crazy. I'm going to commence to start a movement to put this guy in the mental house. And she did that. She started to talk with the mayor, with the doctors in Pedro Leopoldo. Hey, this Chico Xavier is nuts. He got to go to the mental house, because I can't stand this. I can't stand this man talking to nobody right beside my home. And then Chico, one time, somebody told him that, and he was there. He went to her house and pressed the ring, the door. Yeah, he knocked the door, and so there she was, and Chico told her, Mrs. something. I'm not saying her name. I'm here to sign an order to you, giving you the right to put me in the mental house, with one condition. At the day I stop being a worker and sustento, arrimo, and the head of the house of my family. At the day that I could not support my family, you have my authorization to put me in the mental house. So from that day on, she never told anyone about this, and forgot about this thing. In 19 of April of 1931, Chico suffered the passed away of his second mother, Senhora Cidália Batista Xavier, that was very close to him. The day before, she told Chico that she was feeling that she was going. And Chico suffered a lot about that, because she was the one that Chico counted on. And then, but the next day, she really passed away. And at that time, the velorio, funeral, was held in Brazil in the homes of the people. And Chico was very sad about everything with his brothers and sisters, everyone, neighbors around the coffin. And he was praying for her. And she was a very special woman. Why? And I asked my fellow women here about that. When she met Chico's father had already had a family, 9 children from his first marriage. One of them was Chico. And then he started seeing Mrs. Cidalia Batista, and proposed to her. And she told Mr. João Xavier, okay, I'll marry you with one condition. Bring your 9 children to me so that I could be a mother to them. That's fantastic. Come on. That's no ordinary woman. Would you do that? She was something. And Chico recognized this. And so when she passed away, Chico was praying for her. And all of a sudden, he could not see the ceiling of the house. It was looking like the universe around us. And from the universe, he saw a street of light that came down from heavens, down to earth, all straight to his house in Pedro Leopoldo. And he started to see balls of light, like dancing through this street of light, and coming down to the earth. And he was so amazed with this sighting. And when those balls of light approached his second mother, coffin, they all transformed into beautiful aladas, como que é? Criaturas aladas. Creatures with wings, like angels, and so transparent, so full of light. And they all involved his second mother, coffin, and all of them kissed her on the forehead. And all of the sudden Chico saw her waking up. She sat at her coffin, waved to Chico. She saw that Chico was seeing her. She knew that, right? She waved to Chico like saying goodbye. I'm going. I told you I was going to go. And then Chico was very, very emotional at that time, crying a lot of this sight. And all of a sudden, he saw Mrs. Cidalia Batista Xavier transforming herself in an angel, in a creature like the ones that came for her. And so that they all took her away. And Chico heard a very beautiful song that he could not be aware from where it came from, but he was hearing like a victory song for this soul that was returning to the heavens. And he told me that night was the night here on earth that he felt it most alone, that he felt the anguish to be by himself, with no one to care about. And after that, of course, the works and the charity, all the tasks that he was committed to do, fulfilled all his needs. So we're not talking about an easy life. No. We used to see a very wonderful personality with so many mediumships, so nice to talk to spirits. But you have to know the pathway that he walked through to reach this. There was an interview that I made with him in 1988 that he talked about his committed to the automatic writings, the psychography. And first of all, he told me that his compromise was to receive only 30 books. Only 30 books. His commitment was to receive only 30 books. But he was able to complete the task very soon. So Emmanuel appeared to him and asked him, Chico, as we already have reached the task of 30 books, converting into the streets of Earth. So I'll propose you to double that. We'll make it 60. All right? And Chico, okay. I'm good enough. I'm healthy, and I'll complete the work. So that he completed the work in 1959 when he moved to Uberaba with the book Evolução em Dois Mundos, which is in Evolution in Two Worlds, from André Luiz, the 60th book of Chico. And so he moved to Uberaba thinking that the work is done. Okay, in 2 years I'm going to retire and we do something else in Uberaba. Then Emmanuel appeared to him again. Okay, Chico, we completed very, very soon the task, so why not 100? We've done 60 books till now. We could do 100. Why not? Are you up to this? Okay, I'm up to this. I'm almost retired now in Uberaba. It's okay. We'll go until 60. So in 1969, he completed 100 books published. Poetas Redivivos is the book. Revive poets. It was a tribute for his first book also. That was from the poets, the Brazilian and Portuguese poets that wrote through Chico. And then he felt, okay, 100 is enough, isn't it? I've dedicated my life, all my life to writing and writing. That's enough. And then Emmanuel appeared to him again. Okay, Chico, what's up? Okay, I'm done. 100 books. Let's do something else. And Emmanuel told him, well, I don't have good news about that. Why not? Well, I have here a decree of our Lord Jesus Christ about your body. And what is that? Chico said. And Emmanuel told him, okay, the decree of Jesus states that as you had been a very good servant with the task of psychography, you have to dedicate all your body to this mediumship until the end of your days at Earth, until you die. and so that your body is now confiscated. It's not your property anymore. It's confiscated. And Chico told him, because Chico was always very clever and always making fun of things. And Chico told Emmanuel, okay, come on. We are adept of a doctrine that teaches us that we have free will. How is that? I have free will, don't I? And Emmanuel, yes, sure you have. So that I can choose just not to collaborate, right? It's my right. It's my choice, right? Emmanuel, yes, it's your choice. So what happens then? If I just say no? Okay, you can say no, but in that case, I have another order to fulfill. And what is that? I have the order from Jesus that in that case, you die now. What about that? I take you from your body right now. Oh no, please! I just want to finish my task, and I will dedicate all my forces, all my will to accomplish that. So Chico complete his work, right? And is still working after his death, because after his death, we were able to find lots of material, lots of messages in the original writings of Chico that was not published. And in Pedro Leopoldo, in Casa de Chico Xavier's and Vinha de Luz editora, we are being able to bring those works. So he not only complete the task, but is still working, publishing books that we are bringing. One of the aspects of Chico psychography that is very interesting, that most of his work was intuitive psychography. But in some cases, there were the mechanical psychography. In that cases, the spirit had to take Chico's hand to write. But those were just 3 exceptions. Most of them were intuitive and all through his mind, as Kardec states at the Medium's book. And André Luiz explains at his works also. I know 2 cases where Chico acted as a mechanic writing, mediumship. One of them was from when the founder of Companhia Siderúrgica Belgo-Mineira, who was a Belgian guy that went to Brazil in order to the Grand Duchess of Luxembourg to close all her states in Brazil in the early years of 1920s. But when he arrived in Minas Gerais state and saw the potential, the mineral and industrial potential of the steel and everything, he told her that he was otherwise not close her business there, but open more business, buy new companies and form a steel mill, the Companhia Siderúrgica Belgo-Mineira. His name was Louis Enche, from Belgium. And when in Brazil, he lost his son and was of course, very moved to this situation. And my aunt Adelia in Belo Horizonte, who was a friend of him, told him about Chico Xavier and the possibility for him to get some news from the spirit of his son. And so he went to Pedro Leopoldo with my Aunt Adelia, and then he received not news from his son, but from his grandpa from Luxembourg in classic Luxembourgese. And Chico told me that he received 6 letters from Mr. Louis Ench grandpa in classic Luxembourgese, and that was a language that in past lives Chico didn't had any chance to know, so that the spirit must took his hand to write. He was not able to receive it by his mind because he would not have the basics in his conscious to offer the spirit. And the other mechanical writing that Chico had was when Augusto César Neto was a guy, 18 years old guy from Santos, Brazil. He was drowned at the sea, and his mother Yolanda, Dona Yolanda César, was very moved. They were a Catholic family, not knowing anything about Spiritism, but someone told her, "Oh, Yolanda, go to Chico Xavier in Uberaba e tal." And so that she went 69 times to Uberaba and did not receive one letter from her son, which is amazing because this is also something, right? Teaches us something. And the 69th time that she was there in Uberaba, and everyone that she knew that had lost a child or son or daughter or something have already received, but she hadn't. And Mrs. Yolanda César received the first message from her son, Augusto César Neto. And from now on, Chico Xavier never stopped receiving letters from him. Every time she was there, Augusto César would write something. And the first book of Augusto César, which is Augusto César Lives, the name of the book, was written in the gíria, slang words of the people that lives in Santos, the Baixada Santista area in Brazil. So, and also very young people, like 18 years old, 17, 19. And Chico also could not write about that. So Augusto César would have to take his hand and write himself as a mechanical mediumship, which is very interesting. This many of our friends and everyone that knows the Chico's life don't know that Chico also had the mediumship of the physical materializing mediumship. How do you say it? Materialization mediumship. He was a friend of a very good medium, materialization medium, and he one time in 1949 he would like to test if he had also this potential of having the spirits materialized through his ectoplasm. And for 3 years in Pedro Leopoldo, Chico held these sessions where he was the medium, and the spirits would come, all materialized, some of them luminous, like Emmanuel, like Sheila, like May, and talk to the people, just like we are here. One of them is Martins Peralva, a very good friend of ours that also has passed away. Martins Peralva was a very studied, how can I say, studioso, scholar, doctrine scholar. He was from state of Sergipe in Brazil, but he had tuberculosis there in Aracaju, in Sergipe. Then his doctors told him, or one at that time tuberculosis didn't have a cure, so he would ask to move from Aracaju, and he chose Belo Horizonte because it was a city that had a mild climate, and also because of the proximity with Chico. He would love to get to know Chico. And Martins Peralva were there. He moves to Belo Horizonte in 1947. And in 1949, when Chico started these sessions, materialization sessions, he was a tuberculosis patient, right, that didn't have cure. And one of these sessions, the spirit of Sheila fully materialized just in front of him. Asked Peralva, do you have faith? And he told it, yes, Mrs., I have faith. And she excused herself to open his jacket, and she would do like that with her hands, and Peralva would see a cup, a light ball, a cup being materialized in her hands, and she threw the contents of this in Peralva's face and chest. And Peralva would feel all this spiritual matter enter him and kind of cleaning his lungs. And he was so full of happiness and energy. He was different from this time on. From this time on, I was a very close friend with Peralva, and I'm a very close friend with his children in Belo Horizonte. And from this time on, he never, ever had any trace of tuberculosis. He went to the doctors, and the doctors couldn't believe what happened, because he had never had any more traces of tuberculosis. So that these 3 years of sessions, materialization sessions, had this purpose. The purpose to help people in their needs, in their sickness, and many of them. One of my great uncle was cured also from a problem in his heart, Zeca Machado, that had a problem of his heart. And after 3 years, both Martins Peralva and also another friend of ours, Arnaldo Rocha, Arnaldo Rocha is the husband of May May, that was coordinating these sessions. The last one, both of them talk about this, what they experienced. And they saw, it was the first and only time that Emmanuel himself was materialized, and fully materialized, illuminating all the ambience with his light. And they told us that Emmanuel would have like 2 meters of height. How to say it in English? 2 meters? 2 meters tall. No. 6'5". Okay, like more than this door, right? And he would came with a light, a torch, in one of his hands, and the other hands holding the gospel according to Spiritism. And Emmanuel told everyone, listen please, this is the last reunion, the last session the medium is having with materialization. I'm ordering him to stop this now. And Chico Xavier must dedicate all his forces, all his conditions to psychography. Because here in materialization, we can sure cure someone, but a few, just a few. And the benefits will be very restricted. In psychography is different, because psychography is like the rain that goes to the field and planted the field with the water of life, and will be with everyone forever, because everyone can access the teachings, no matter when, no matter in what condition. The book survives and could reach places that we can never imagine. So from this time on, Chico Xavier is forbidden to dedicate himself to materialization. It's a very stressful work that in some cases can expedite death. Yeah. So Chico was so disciplined that never again, from 1952-53, he undergo with materialization sessions again. Chico also had another kind of mediumship, that is psychometry, right? And I could see myself that, and I was very much impressed. One of the cases, I was not present, but my aunt Nair and her husband Silvio was present. One of her friends in São Paulo was a very successful businessman, and he had bought in Europe, in London, a piano, a very nice piano that was made in 1809 to present to Marie-Louise, Archduchess of Austria, when she was married to Napoleon. And the piano was very beautiful and all painted. And one time, and Chico knew about this piano and asked my Aunt Nair, in one time he appeared in her house in São Paulo, and asked him, my Aunt Nair to bring him to Mrs. Yolanda Ansará and Dr. Camilo Ansará house, so that he could know the piano. And my aunt was with Chico and her husband Silvio. They bring Chico to the couple house in Avenida Brasil in São Paulo. And Chico, they told us that Chico just touched the piano all around, and start talking about the history of the piano. Since the piano was made, all the persons involved in the making, in the painting, the time that the piano was at Napoleon's house, when Napoleon was the French emperor. Then after the Napoleon deposed, the piano was bought to Mr. Georges Sand, which was a novelist and a writer in France, a friend of Allan Kardec. And Chico talked about her relationship with Frédéric Chopin. And Chico was talking. After that, the piano was bought to a Bavarian financier in Munich. And then after that, to a count in Russia, in St. Petersburg, Russia, Count Dmitry of Keremetyev. And Chico was telling all about that. And the thing is, this couple, Mr. Camilo Ansará and his wife, Yolanda, had all this history written and sealed by the French Minister of Foreign Affairs. Everything that Chico was telling them, he could not know because the documents were with them. But it was exactly the truth that was written and sealed by the French Minister of Foreign Affairs. And this is a kind of mediumship, psychometry. And Chico also, the mayor of Uberaba, had a very special relationship with Chico because Chico was someone else, right? Yeah, he brought so many movements and good things to Uberaba. So the mayor gave Chico a presence of one military officer, PM, military police officer, to accompany him and to protect him because he was a public figure that could, in some cases, be in danger. It always happened, this kind of thing. And this guy was the one that would go with Chico to buy magazines and journals and everything. And Chico would buy everything. Buy journals and magazines, books, everything from the stands, right? Stands news. But he hadn't the time to read all of that. One time he would ask Chico, Chico, may I ask you something? I don't understand why you buy so many things, so many magazines and books, and you don't have the time to read this. I know your life. You are always doing something else and helping people, going to the Spirit Center. How can you spare so much money with this? And Chico told him, you know, I have a thing that I don't understand how it happens, but I don't need to read them. I just need to put my hand over it. And I know exactly what is writing, what is written, what's the subject of this news or book, if worthwhile or not. And I don't understand why. It just happens. He was very humble about everything. And I could myself see that because in 1992, I was committed to do a research. Before that, of course, and 3 years before that, I was a director of União Espírita Mineira, the Spiritist Federation in Minas Gerais. And I would like to collect all the works, the inédito, not published, unpublished works of Chico that Chico would have received in Belo Horizonte in the years 30s, 40s, and 50s. And I collect a very large material that is the book that Vanessa has here, Chico Xavier, Mandato de Amor. And then I was, but I didn't talk about this with Chico. It was meant to be a surprise, right? Because in July of 1992, the book was meant to be our tribute to Chico's mediumship at his 65 years of mediumship in July of 1992. Okay, the book was completed. I was very, very worried because I had so many material, but I didn't have any photos from that time. And the book was going to be kind of too heavy. How do you say it in English? No. Boring, because didn't have illustrations or photos of Chico at that time. And we were at the reunion at União Espírita Mineira, and I was just talking about that with Martins Peralva, who was the vice president, and Neném Aluoto, the president, that I was very worried about that. The book didn't have any illustration, any photos of Chico, and my desire was to find photos of that time, and nobody had that. Okay, then somebody knocked the door and called Martins Peralva. Oh, there's someone here that arranged to meet you, Mr. Peralva. Could you come and see that? And Peralva was, I didn't arrange any meetings that time. You know, that time we have reunion of the board here in União Espírita Mineira. And after 3 times, Neném Aluoto, the president, told him, Peralva, go there and see what the guy has. Okay, who was there? He was a photographer, and he told Peralva that Peralva telephoned him, asking him for Chico's photos of the 30s, the 40s, and the 50s. And Peralva was so amazed because the guy just gave us 100 pictures of Chico Xavier of the 30s, 40s, and 50s, and brought us like very big copies of them, asking Peralva that was the arrangement by the phone. And Peralva would swear that he never talked with this guy by the phone. So that you could see, you all can see those photos at Chico Xavier Mandato de Amor. And when the book was finally finished, Neném Aluoto, the president, told me, Geraldinho, I know you have very much interest in this book because it's the book you coordinated, but I would like to ask you one thing. I'd like that Chico Xavier would be the first person to see it. So although I know it's hard for you as a publisher, I would like you to go to the Gráfica printer. Okay, we'll go to the printer, take the first 100 books, and the first edition was a big book like this capa dura, hardcover and everything. It's a very, very beautiful book. I would like you to bring the first 100, take from the printer, and bring to Chico Xavier at once. Okay, no problem. I coordinated that, and I took the 100 first envelopes and all covered. I couldn't see it, so that Chico would be the first one to see it. I went to the Pampulha airport in Belo Horizonte, took the plane, arrived in Uberaba. Euripides was already waiting for me and my wife there, and we went straight to Chico's house in Uberaba. I knew everything that was in this book, but I'd never talk about this with Chico because it was meant to be a surprise, right? And I offered him the first. I told him, Chico, Neném Aluoto wants you to have the first edition, the first book. So here it is. And Chico just put his hand over the book and starting passing his hands over the book, and was talking and looking to me. He was not looking to the book. He was looking to me. But he was passing the sheets, the pages, passing the pages, and telling me about what was written, the messages that I found, where he psychographed them, everything, the photos, everything. And he was crying, and I was crying also. And I think this man is not from this world, right? He's not from this world. He is something else. He is a Christ apostle. To give himself as he did all his life, all his 75 life years of giving, it's something else, very, very impressive. And being with him was a very opportunity for me, and and still today I'm very impressed and moved with this, the blessing of God in my life, because just to have the opportunity to know him and to have 21 years of friendship with him, it was very special for me. One of his works that is very little known is the mediumship of psychophony, right? Speaking mediumship. Okay, speaking mediumship. And this is the kind of work I saw Chico's doing that some sessions. We called this obsession, right? He was the medium for the most needed spirits, the most disturbed spirits. And it's a kind of charity also, that he gave himself with much love to receive all those spirits that disturbed and violent and inhabitants of the spiritual world that doesn't have light and doesn't have enlightenment. And he would care very carefully, very much for this kind of reunion. Every Wednesday he had that kind of reunion with some friends, since Pedro Leopoldo until his death. He always gave himself to this kind of work also. We call it this obsession. Chico also had one kind of mediumship that was very worrying for us. And what was that? Mind reading. That was a problem. Let me tell you guys. That was a really good, big problem for us, because he could read our thoughts, and he would respond it to us. And we would like, oh my goodness, what did I think of? What's going on? And I had so much trouble with that because, your thoughts are free and you think things that you shouldn't. And Chico is just there to respond it to you. But I'm not talking about that. It's embarrassing. And he was something. Sometimes I and my wife would drove from Belo Horizonte to Uberaba. Is like 5-hour driving, 500 kilometers. And her brother lived with Chico Xavier. Vivaldo da Cunha Borges was the one that organized all the books that Chico published from 1968 on. And after my marriage with Eliana in 1984, we always went to Uberaba and stayed at Chico's house and had a very close relationship with him. So that when we came to Uberaba many times, we'd talk about our lives, about Vivaldo's life, the family of the Borges, of Eliana and everything. And when we arrived in Uberaba, Chico would tell us, Geraldinho, that you talk about is not quite that. You should think this other way, about this, and this. Eliana, watch out. This is not the truth. He was like that. And how could he listen to our thoughts and speaking from 500 kilometers, 400 kilometers away? I don't understand that. He was something, right? And also he had one kind of mediumship, very little known, which is presciencia, foresight. And we had many occasions and that Chico Xavier would predict the future. One is with my parents, my father. In 1984, he predicted that my father would have a very difficult disease, which is Alzheimer, and Chico predicted that 16 years before it happened. And also, one time, I was there in Uberaba, and I was studying economics at the university in Belo Horizonte, and I had a test, a very, very difficult test in Belo Horizonte Monday night, so that I should have go back to Belo Horizonte as soon as possible. I went to Uberaba Friday night, and when after the session, Chico Xavier session, public session, in Grupo Espírita da Prece in Uberaba, Saturday night, he would always, Friday and Saturday, he would start his psychographic and receive around 10 to 12 messages each night. He would start at 8 p.m. and no time to stop. It could go to 4 a.m., it could go to 5 a.m., and Chico writing. Unstoppable. And it was those sessions were very emotional, because we could see the families, their faces, their pain, their sorrow, and how they recognize their loved ones from the writings that Chico received, the details of their death, the details, the very intimacy details that identified themselves to their loved ones here on earth. And many times you would go crying, although you never saw these people, you just were there to them. And Chico received all those letters, and he himself loved to read them. He was the one to read them for everyone. So after he received all those letters, read them to their loved ones, so he started to embrace and receiving the friendship of everyone. So the session would go like 3 a.m., 4 a.m. That day, it was 3 a.m. And I was very aroused. I mean, I was not having sleepy problems. And I thought to myself, we would just go back to Belo Horizonte, me and Eliana. It's 3 a.m., the highway is empty. In 5 hours I'll be in Belo Horizonte. Will be a Sunday, and I'll have time to study. And I talked to Chico. We went to Chico's house, and I talked to Chico. Chico, I'm very well. I think I'm going to hit the road. And he was like, no, you're not going to travel this time. No. He was very stubborn, like me. An Aryan thing, right? And he was, no, you can't do that. This is too danger. And I told, no, I think I can do it. I'm fine. And so he told me, okay, you can go. But there's one thing I want you to pay attention. When you will be approaching one city, the Campos Altos, when you start the descent of the Alterosa Mountains, there will be one person in the middle of the road doing this. And he showed me the gestures that he was going to do. Okay. And he was told me, this person is dressed like military police, but don't stop, because it's a bad thing. Okay, I told my wife was starting to cry right now, right now. But I told Chico, would you pray for us? Then I go, okay, now I'll pray for you guys. But don't forget, arriving Campos Altos, there will be this problem. Don't stop your car, because it's a bad thing. And I'm talking about something like 3 hours driving or 2.5 hours driving from Uberaba, right? And exactly at the point that Chico predicted, there was that guy in the middle of the road doing exactly the same thing he performed to me and Eliana, asking the car to stop. And Eliana was crying like crazy. Oh my goodness. And I was so calm, because I knew I had to slow down a little bit so that he would think that I would stop the car, right? Because otherwise he would stand up in front of us at the highway. And then the guy came, and he almost crossed my line beside me at the car. I accelerated, yes. And we moved away from this bad thing. I don't know if it was from Earth or not. I don't care. But I was very happy to pass this. And I was very amazed how Chico Xavier could predict this almost 3 hours before, in that exact time, exact point that he told us. So this is the guy, this is the man which we are talking about. One thing that I hear from him in the mid-80s, and I'll be honest with you guys. Inside, I was laughing. Oh, this is crazy. This can't happen. And he was talking to me like, and not only to me, but Euripides and other ones around him. You know what? At that time, the Brazilians would make fun of one governor in São Paulo that founded Petro and never found petroleum, right? And Brazil would had a very hard time finding petroleum, oil, and would have a great deal of importation from Saudi Arabia, from Iraq, from Iran, to fulfill its needs. And at that time, Chico told us, you know what? Brazil would discover a really big reserve of oil right in the bottom of the sea, like 5,000 kilometers, 6,000 kilometers below sea level, and we would be one of the greatest producers of oil in the world. And I was kind of laughing. This guy is crazy. How is that possible? No? And then from 5 years to now, this has come to happen. So it's another prediction of Chico that I saw come true. Okay. I don't understand that. And work, yeah. I don't understand that. And also, I have access to many materials from him, his personal, how do you say, archive, his personal archives. His family gave to me his personal archives, and many families, friends of Chico, gave to me all the letters and postcards and everything. Like my aunt, my great aunt Adelia, she had the prova, proof to, she had a son, 18 years old son that passed away, and she suffered a lot with that in 1941. And she could not only receive 33 letters from him to her, like consoling her, right? But also he would go. She at that time she lived in Belo Horizonte, which is 50 kilometers from Pedro Leopoldo. But Chico, that lived in Pedro Leopoldo, where William, her son, was enterrado, buried. She could go to his no gravesite. Would take flowers from it and dry it and make postcards to my great aunt Adelia with loving words and comforting words. He was, used to say that he was the master of time, because he was always working. And I was an eyewitness of this. We would go like Friday and Saturday to the meetings, the public sessions of psychography. We would go to his home around 4 a.m., maybe sometimes 5 a.m., and he was so awake. He would give us the lunch, coffee break at 5 a.m. and start talking like it was noon, right? One day he told me, Geraldinho, one thing happens to me that I don't understand, because I don't need to be sleepy or to have a long night of sleep. Sometimes I go to bed and I think to myself, oh, today I'm going to pray for every one of the street X. Yeah. And I would remember that first house, that family that lived there, their drama, everything that happened to them. I'll pray for them. Then I pass to the other house and the other one. And then when I arrive to the next street, the sun is already coming up. So it's time to feed the dogs and the cats. And I do it myself. I don't let anyone do it. I like to feed my cats and my dogs. Yeah. So Chico was like that. Yes, I'm sure about that. And although my mother's family, all of them were spiritists, acting spiritists in Belo Horizonte and Pedro Leopoldo, my mom didn't embrace the spiritism. So my father was Catholic, but not a devoted Catholic. So in our home, we didn't have any religion teachings, any. I didn't have the first communion, anything. We didn't have anything. But from the moment I knew about Chico, I knew to myself that I had to meet this guy, and he would make a huge difference in my life. And then when I finally got to meet him in person in 1981, I can tell you that I learned from him how to love God from the bottom of my heart, and how to feel the love that Jesus Christ and Our Lady, Holy Lady Mary, has to us, towards us. Because Chico would talk to us about this love with it was so intense in his eyes, in his voice, in his feelings, that anyone could feel it, very present, not something distant, not something away from us, from like something 2,000 years ago. No, something real, nowadays, close to us, besides us, for us. That's the thing that Chico meant to me, and I'm sure meant to everyone that knows his life, his works, and get to know what the messages that came through him can bring about. Well, thank you very much. Let's make a break now.